Hey friends, I've been using the Galaxy Z Fold 7 for 2 days now, and after just 48 hours, it's clear to me that this is where I'll stay. Even though there are points that bother me or that Samsung definitely could or even should have done better, the Z Fold 7 has personally brought something back to me: the fun of using such a foldable smartphone in the first place. We all remember the Galaxy Z Fold 6. Technically pretty great, but also too thick, too heavy, the front display much too narrow to use properly, camera rather mediocre, as was the battery. And looking at the competition, which never sleeps, it quickly became clear that the Fold 6 simply couldn't keep up, at least in terms of hardware. And just 1 year later, Samsung releases the Galaxy Z Fold 7, which does almost everything absolutely right, leaving me wondering, couldn't they have made it at least somewhat like this last year? Because the developmental leap from the Fold 6 to the Fold 7 couldn't be bigger. The Galaxy Z Fold 7 is finally incredibly thin. In its folded state, nearly 4mm thinner than its predecessor, and at 215 grams, a solid 24 grams lighter. Folded, the Fold 7 now has a decent 21:9 format and inside a beautiful large 8-inch display. The edges are now completely flat, just like the back. Nothing bulges out, and paired with the sharp corners, the Fold 7 has an incredibly sleek and futuristic design. There is currently no thinner foldable phone on the market, which is simply a fact. Even the competition, which will launch in Europe soon, is theoretically 0.1mm thinner, but doesn't feel like it. Trust me, you need to experience the Z Fold 7 in your hand to understand why you'd want to use this device. The differences between the Galaxy Z Fold 6 and the Fold 7 are not only subtle, no, these are whole worlds apart. I noticed something very funny in the last 48 hours. The Galaxy S25 Ultra weighs 3 grams more than the Galaxy Z Fold 7, which is basically nothing. However, when I pick up the S25 Ultra, my brain immediately thinks, what a heavy chunk. But when I pick up the equally heavy Z Fold 7, where my brain thinks, oh, you can fold this, what an amazingly light and airy device. That's really weird, but go to the store and pick up both devices. I'm curious if you feel the same way. And I just want to emphasize, the new design of the Fold 7 is simply fun. It's incredibly thin when unfolded, though looking at the USB-C port, I've wondered how durable such an extremely thin design actually is. I guess only time will tell. Besides the new design, the second highlight that is welcomed is that the Galaxy Z Fold 7 includes the 200-megapixel main sensor from the Galaxy S25 Ultra. With this, you can unreservedly take really great photos and videos, just like on the S25 Ultra, and Samsung has simply eliminated one of the biggest criticisms of foldables in general. The 12-megapixel ultra wide angle also does a solid job. And I'd love to just leave it at that and move on to the next topic. But there's a third lens, namely the 10-megapixel telephoto camera with 3 times optical zoom. Up to this point, everything is still reasonably good in terms of quality, but from the 10 times digital zoom onwards, it gets more difficult. In my opinion, the 30 times digital zoom is unusable. What I don't understand is why AI isn't used to the fullest to improve the quality at least a little bit. In itself, considering how thin the device is, the camera doesn't actually protrude too far. But if you place the Fold 7 in its closed state on the table and then want to type something, friends, forget it. It wobbles so much on the table because the camera is placed on the side. But because of this placement of the camera, nothing wobbles when you place it unfolded on the table, and you can tap on it as much as you want. What's also new is that there's no longer an under-display camera on the inner display, which used to enable an undisturbed screen experience on the inside. This has been replaced by a 10-megapixel punch-hole camera, meaning we now have a black camera dot on the edge like with other foldables. Initially, it bothered me due to break of continuous display, but 10 seconds later, my brain already started to ignore it. I still find it a shame because I thought it was cool not to have a cutout in the display, at least for 10 seconds, until my brain filtered that out too. The front camera on the outside display has 10 megapixel and does a great job in good light, but you don't really need it because you can simply use the main camera and use the front display as a viewfinder, which in my view is one of the advantages of a foldable. Another advantage is of course the 3 displays that you can use on this type of smartphone and would be the reason why you buy such a device in the first place. They are truly top-notch in typical Samsung fashion. If they can do one thing, it's build displays. However, I would have wished that both the outer display and the inner display were anti-reflective in some form. Since I've seen this on the Galaxy S25 Ultra, I actually want it on everything. And at the price point, which we'll get to later, one might have expected all the latest Samsung technologies to be used. Instead, I've now ordered an anti-reflective screen protector from the Samsung shop. The Galaxy Z Fold 7 comes with the Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy, the current top processor in the Android sector. And of course it runs super fast, super smooth, even with all the AI applications that the Fold 7 brings. This processor is also considered energy efficient, which it needs to be because a much criticized fact is that the Galaxy Z Fold 7 still comes with a modest 4400 mAh battery. That really hurts in 2025, and one of the most frequently asked questions when I posted the unboxing of the Fold 7 on my Instagram channel was how long it lasts. I've now been using the device for 48 hours for emails, WhatsApp, phone calls, listening to music. I went jogging with it, took videos and photos. On Sunday morning, just after 10 a.m., I took it off the charger at 100% and had a screen time of 4 hours and 44 minutes that day. A day later, I have had an additional 1 hour and 47 minutes of screen time, which ended with 12% battery life at 2 p.m. That's a total of 6.5 hours of screen time with 12% battery remaining. So in the end, you might get around 7 to 7.5 hours of screen time. And I find that really completely sufficient. During this time, you certainly have the opportunity to plug the Fold 7 in somewhere. But of course, this is just the experience from the last 48 hours. I'm also curious to see how the battery will perform in the long-term test. So I'm completely fine with the battery. The only downside is that the battery can only be charged at 25 watts, which isn't fast for the year 2025. Personally, I always charge my smartphone at night, so it's not quite so important to me how fast it charges. What has been very important to me with the previous Fold devices is being able to use the S Pen to take notes on this beautiful large inner display, sign documents and precisely edit photos and videos with it. That has always been really nice and a really unique selling point compared to the foldable competition. And now that's simply gone because the S Pen support was sacrificed in favor of the slim design. Presumably, the S Pen wasn't widely used on the Fold, so I can understand the decision in the end, even though I personally regret it. But it also was always annoying to have to carry the S Pen separately because you couldn't attach it anywhere on the device. At the same time, I'm also a huge fan of the ultra slim design. There are just so many hearts beating in my chest. What made my heart stumble a bit is the retail price, because the smallest version with 12GB RAM and 256GB storage cost 2,099 euros, which is really quite a figure. But I think after the launch, you should take note of the retail price, then go directly to the website and look at what launch offers there are. Discounts, free or discounted add-ons, and trade-in offers for your old device. And then you simply don't pay this large price in the end. And of course, that's still really a lot of money in the end. There's no arguing with that. But with this device, with such a processor and the large screen, and thanks to the new format, you're buying a full 3 devices. A smartphone, a tablet, and with Samsung DeX on board, probably 99% of people don't need a separate laptop anymore. Because the Snapdragon has more power than most budget laptops that most people work with day to day. And then there's also this really successful futuristic design with 7 years of OS and 7 years of security updates. And then I find the whole thing hurts a tiny, tiny bit less. Those were my experiences from the first 48 hours with the Galaxy Z Fold 7. I'm now looking forward to the phase of intensive use. With that in mind, friends, thank you so much for watching. Goodbye and see you next time. Mwah.